The next person I wanted to talk to is Bob Carter. Bob Carter is actually a member of the Montana House of Representatives. He was first elected in 2022. This is his first term in office, and I'm going to bring him in right now. Here we go. And I'm going to remove Christiana. There we go. Bob, how are you doing? Thank you for joining me. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself here?
Hi, Hammond. Oh, it's so great to be here. Bob Carter, representative in Montana. I was born and grew up here. I went to elementary and high school here in Montana. I worked farms and ranches growing up. I went to university here, got my degree eventually in computer science with math and finance emphasis, and after a great career in Silicon Valley and doing all the fun stuff that I like doing, I finally met someone I wanted to marry, and we decided to have kids. And when we decided to have kids, my wife was just starting her career, and she said, well, one of us needs to dedicate ourselves to taking care of the kids. We're not going to let somebody else do it, and I'm sure you're going to do a great job. And I said, yes, ma'am. And so, yeah, I started getting involved here 2 decades ago in, regular dad type things as a primary caregiver, childcare, being a volunteer in the preschool classroom, and then getting on the school board or on the preschool board started, and then being president of the preschool board, and then finally, as the kids migrated into elementary school, I ran for a school board member and spent, 12 years or so as a school board member. And then when our beloved senator and representative in the area all termed out, I decided the next step in that progress for me was to run for state legislator. And here I am today.
That's fantastic. I don't think I've ever heard that kind of trajectory, but it makes sense. You're starting very local, like with your
Right?
family, and it just steps up there. Um, I feel like I can say this. I'm not making any ASEO is not a political partisan organization, I should say, but I am curious when you have run, especially for the state legislature. One of the things about you is you have not hid the fact that you are non-theistic, but do you think voters were more disturbed by something like that or something like the D next to your name on the ballot?
So being so open about my theistic flavors, I guess you could say, I approach it as being a scientist. Excuse me. And being a scientist, I try to do things in an evidence-based way. And during my campaigning as a school board member and then as a state legislator, I had so many people that identified as Christian, number one, or fill in the blank religion. And I thought, why would I hide my theistic views and stuff if all these people are coming out and saying, hey, like other people say, what church do you go to, and things like that. And I went through the progression back in high school and in college. My folks were very Catholic. They tried to push that on me. None of it, excuse me, made sense to me at all. The discrepancies in the Bible, I read the Bible many times, and I found as a high school student discrepancies. And then getting off to college, I met people who were Jewish or Catholic, or they were Hindi or Buddhist. And I finally, after years of thought and consideration, decided, well, they all can't be right. And if they're not all right, there's probably not one of them that's wrong. They're probably all wrong. And so I moved forward with that. And as an evidence-based person, I would like to think of myself as agnostic, that if something came up and said, hey, this is obviously supernatural based, then I would believe that. But so far, it's never happened. And yet I would talk to people that, would ask me, to their church, to talk to people in their church. Or I'd have people reach out to me and say, hey, are you Christian, or are you, I hear you're an atheist. And I would say, yeah, I don't have a belief. I don't believe in any supernatural. And people, I think, since I was so forthcoming about it, that people appreciated that. And the fact that I would embrace, you believe whatever you want. I'm not telling you you're right or wrong. I'm doing what I think is right for me, just like you should do what's right for your family. And don't tell me what's right for my family. I won't tell you. We'll try to get along here and move forward. And so that's really worked out really well for me. And I would say most people, I've had a bunch of people say, I probably won't vote for you, but I'd sure like to have a beer with you. Or, come and talk to our Bible group. And in fact, our legislature has a 6:30 a.m. Bible study in the Capitol building. And I attend all those too, and I don't know if people realize that I'm not one that believes like them, but they accept me and I accept them. And I think this would be a better world if we all did that.
Let me ask you about that legislature. Montana is a deeply red state, and one of the questions I have as a scientist, as an atheist, as a Democrat, what can you accomplish by having your voice in the mix there, even if you can't necessarily, you don't have the numbers to pass the bills you want? I'm wondering if someone is asking, like, I want to run, but it's a very red area I'm in, what's the point?
Right. And that's a super fair question. Why would I run in a place that is deeply red and I have little choice? I think what that does is, one, it brings another voice to the table. And that voice is so important because now you don't have just a single voice just spewing things that may or may not be true. Now what you do is you have another voice, and I think having that multitude of voices moderates everybody and it brings everybody closer to the center. And my personal views are probably a little bit different than my political views. I would say I am more of a centric person politically than I am in personal. And so, bringing that to the table, and then having the support network that's needed in order to be able to do that. And the far right and the far left, they're not going to be able to represent as many people as you can from the center. And so being able to have that discussion with people, having that civil dialogue with people, I think brings people together a lot better than just hearing one side from either side, or one view from either side.
It sounds like you're saying, so you moderate yourself a little bit because of your surroundings, but maybe by having your voice in the mix, you're kind of moderating some of them as well.
No question, right?
This is a question from a viewer right now. It would be nice to hear the strategies to counter dominionism, integralism, Christian nationalism, given the massive crisis about that, especially with regards to LGBTQ criminalization in a red state, where there might be a lot of bills that are being proposed that hurt LGBTQ people, women, trans people. What can you bring to the mix that might try to either stop those bills or at least delay them or moderate them in any way? Have you had any stories in your year in office so far of those kinds of successes, if they exist?
Right. So that's a great question. And that's something that we are battling with, having that dialogue with quite a bit. The Democrats in Montana are in a super minority right now. The Republicans have a super majority. And so it's hard to get our core values heard and passed. But what we can do is we can bring a voice to those that don't have a voice. In our caucus, in the Democratic caucus, we have people of all lifestyles and preferences, and they, right behind me is Zoe Zephyr. Zoe Zephyr is a trans woman who has been very outspoken. I've got several people who identify as queer that sit in our caucus as well. And these people are so strong, and they're so brave, and they're very articulate, and they go out there and they put themselves out there, and they're fabulous. They are just the people that everybody else wants to look up to, and they're brave, and it's wonderful to see where society is moving. And unfortunately, the folks that are trying to discriminate against people like that, you can see where the trajectory is going. Look at where we are, in the last 70 years. At one time here, people couldn't vote. If you were an atheist, you could not hold office in, I want to say, half the states in the United States. Women, Jeanette Rankin was one of the first people in Montana, or from Montana, that was elected to the U.S. Congress. And so we're getting there. Unfortunately, folks that are trying to hold people back, all it's doing is delaying the inevitable. And we look at where Europe has gone with religion, and where United States is going with religion. It's great to believe in something that you want to believe in. Just don't try to push that out on everybody else. And we talk about freedoms here and local control, and yet there's so much battle out there to try to stifle those freedoms and stifle that local control. Somebody who does not believe like you and I, they're not hurting you and I. And so just let them do what they want to do, and what they are going to do. And let's not try to micromanage what other people's lives are taking when it's not affecting you.
Yeah, and I'm sure people appreciate anytime people like you or Zoe Zephyr speak out against things like that, because having that voice there matters a lot when it comes to representation, no matter who you are. One last political question for you. One thing I saw when I was doing my own research is, you won your Democratic primary with, I think, under 1,000 votes. You won your election with like 3,000 votes because of the geographical distribution and stuff in Montana. And I'm wondering, when the number of votes you need to win an election for like state house uh, is, I guess, in the thousands as opposed to tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, does that change how you campaign? Because maybe you can make more face-to-face connections and you can get to know these people a lot better?
Right. What's interesting about Montana is every district is the same size and population, and yet the geographic distribution is sometimes huge. I mean, we've got some House districts or Senate districts that are larger than some states out on the East Coast. And so I'm fortunate to be on the edge of a very urban area here in Missoula, Montana. And so I can see my whole district on a bicycle. But there's, for example, the Senate district, it goes over the side of the mountain next door and up the road and out the river. And some of these things have, thousands of square miles. And so our senator who had this seat 2 terms ago, she won Diane Sands, Senator Sands won her seat by 30 votes. And so what's really nice about campaigning here in Montana is most of these can be done on foot, and there's still a lot of door knocking. I would say I probably, out of the 10,000 people in my district, I probably knocked on 7,000 doors or so during my primary and during my campaign. And so getting to know those people and being able to put a face to your elected official is really important. And that still happens all the time here in our state with the size of the electorate that we have here. And so, it's really boots on the ground is so important here, for whether it be city council or school board member or for a House or Senate district. And that really makes the difference, because for my primary opponent, who is a fantastic person, he's actually the president of the Missoula area Democrats right now, he outspent me. And a lot of these campaigns, it's not just money. It really is the personal feeling that people have for you.
And if you can get elected as an atheist, that means you are making that personal connection because people get to know you and not just a label, right? Can you tell us really quick before I let you go, why is ASEO important to you? Why would you encourage people to support it? And again, I'll leave the link down here for anyone interested.
When I started doing this, I knew of nothing for support for folks that did not have a church behind them. When I was running as a candidate, Danny Choriki is a city council member in Billings, and he reached out to me and said, "Hey, you know what? I think you might be the second openly atheist person elected in the state," and he was the first one, and he pointed it out to me. And looking at the resources that are available and the support and being able to see a bunch of people that are able to help out and agree with you, and you can bounce ideas off of, and in some places you might not be able to or might not want to, wear your humanist tendencies on your sleeve, and find out the hard way, I guess, by losing an election. But getting out there and knowing that, hey, this is the wave of the future, and this is where things are going. Like I was talking about with that trajectory, we're going to be there, and let's try to help folks out while we can at the grassroots level, and it's going to pay us back, in spades here in the next decade. And again, with the religious reference, we're not doing something for an afterlife. We've got a certain amount of time, and we need to do it now, and we need to focus on the time that we have now. And if you look at the Christian nationalist tendencies in the country here, they really need something to combat that. And even though it's a minority of the folks in the states, it's a very vocal minority, and we need to be able to counter that with something. And ASEO is a great way to counter that.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Where can people learn more about you if they are interested in supporting you in the future?
I have a campaign website that's cartermt.us, CARTERMT.us. And thanks, Hammett. I really appreciate it. It's great talking to you, and keep up the great work.
Likewise. Thank you so much, Bob. I appreciate it.